What is going on, guys? It's ThePowerBauer here. Man, it's been such a long time since I've done that intro, but for an occasion like this, it's only right. It has officially been 10 years, 1 decade since I created my YouTube channel and I've made my first video. That first video is no longer up on my channel, but basically if you wanted to see it, it was just a 12-year-old me saying, oh my god, look, I have a YouTube channel with an even higher pitched voice than I have now. Yeah, that is possible. I am now 22 years old, and I have changed a lot for better and for worse. One thing that has definitely changed for the better, though, is the variety of games I've played, because when I was 12, I had basically just played only Nintendo games with no variety at all. Well, over the past 10 years, I've been exposed to many different genres and series that I had never even heard of before then, so I think I have a much wider variety of games that I have loved. So today, in honor of my channel somehow making it 10 years, let's take a look at my top 10 favorite games of all time. There will be a little bit of overlap of games from the same series, so if that bothers you, fuck you, this is my video. But before we dive into my top 10 favorite games of all time, let's take a look at a few honorable mentions because I just love so many games. The Super Mario Striker series are the best sports games I've ever played, between having some great characters I love and just being crazy as fuck. You can electrocute people while playing soccer. How can you not love that? Metroid Prime is the greatest Metroid game I have ever played and probably would honestly be number 11 if this list had that many spots. So if you want to make a number 11, Metroid Prime would go right there. Donkey Kong 64 and Paper Mario are my two favorite Nintendo 64 games that didn't make this list, and they are just amazing. Pokemon Gold was, I think, the first video game that I ever played, and it is what hooked me on Pokemon as a kid. And Twilight Princess is the best Zelda game that didn't make the top 10 because, spoilers, there will be at least one Zelda game on this list. But now, with all those honorable mentions out of the way, let's dive into my top 10 favorite games of all time. Of all the Sonic games to choose from, my favorite of all of them is not even a main title. Sonic Riders might be the racing game I spent the most time playing as a kid, which is saying a lot considering how much I played Mario Kart and Kirby Air Ride. I spent hours and hours on this game as a kid, to the point where I think I could beat Sand Ruins with my eyes closed. I don't know what it is about hoverboards, but they just made the experience so much better than cars or something like that. The courses are also vastly different and unlike anything you would see in a Mario Kart title, but also exactly like Kirby Air Ride, so maybe that's why I love them so much. I also just love that they included a story mode that actually sort of made sense. So many games like this try to have a story mode, but it either is too short or lackluster, while I always enjoy Sonic Riders' story. Getting to experience it both from the heroes and Babylon Rogue's perspective was such a unique take that actually made me want the bad guys to kinda win. And also, this game was the first to introduce me to my favorite Sonic character, Storm. This buff dumbass bird was the best decision Sega ever made, and I still thank them for that to this day. Pokemon Gold might have been the game that introduced me to the series, but that does not make it the best or my personal favorite. My favorite mainline Pokemon game is Pokemon Black and White or Black and White 2, basically just all of Generation 5. In my humble opinion, this was the peak of Pokemon, the likes of which we may never see again. Now, I'm not someone who hates on Sword and Shield. In fact, I think the games look beautiful and could be some of the best in the series, even if there is no national dex. Also, if you're still upset about that, stop being such a negative Nancy and look at the positives, like how Doug Dimmadome is officially a Pokemon. How could you not love this game? But going back to Gen 5, these games had everything you could ever ask for in a Pokemon title. We got the largest new Pokedex with 156 brand new Pokemon, with some of the best designs as well. Everyone likes to complain that they made an ice cream Pokemon and a trash bag Pokemon, but then they ignore all of the amazing designs like Zebstrika, Haxorus, Scolipede, Crocodile, and the best of all, Hydreigon. Plus, the game has the best story of any of the mainline titles with characters that actually do stuff. When do you ever see the gym leaders do anything outside of standing just in their gyms? The Unova leaders actually sprang into action when the region was in trouble like the most powerful trainers should do. Also, the Pokemon World Tournament? Come on, Gen 5 is far and away the best generation in the series. The next game fairly recently got announced to be getting an HD remake in 2020, and I am absolutely ecstatic. Xenoblade Chronicles is not only one of the most expensive games on the Wii, but also one of the best games on the entire system. It's one of those series that I feel like most people have heard of, but most have never played it for whatever reason. And those of you who have not played it should be ashamed of yourselves because this game is a masterpiece. Although not enough of a masterpiece to be higher than number 8 on this list. Xenoblade was one of the last games to be released on the Wii and didn't even come to North America until 2012, just months before the Wii U came out. But the game took full advantage of the Wii's hardware and had some of the biggest and most beautiful environments I have ever seen from that console. The game perfectly blends exploration of a grand world with excellent storytelling and game mechanics, plus an incredible soundtrack. This game was one of the games that really got me into RPGs, and I highly recommend everyone to check it out, especially since it's getting a remake next year, so there's no reason to not give it a chance. Well, after raving about a game with a vast world and great exploration, let's take a look at another game that's better at both of those departments. A game that many people would consider the best on the Nintendo Switch, Breath of the Wild was one of the biggest successes Nintendo has ever had. Hyrule has always seemed big, from A Link to the Past to Ocarina of Time and to Twilight Princess, but that scale of everything was multiplied by like 1,000 to maybe the best open world experience that I have ever played. Just the feeling of standing on a mountain and looking off into the distance and knowing that you can go anywhere is such a feeling that I just can't put into words. This was without a doubt the game that I had the most fun exploring with all there is to do. I always take my time playing through games like this, so you can imagine how long it took me to fully 100% this game. That's like a couple hundred hours I will never get back. This was also the first Zelda game to have full voice acting, and although some of the voices seem a bit off, Daruk sounds amazing, so that makes up for everything. The only thing that kept Breath of the Wild from being higher on my list was the lack of dungeons. The Divine Beasts are all too similar, and I just needed some more variety. But besides that, the game is nearly perfect. You're probably going to be really surprised to hear this, but I actually have a game that's not from Nintendo in my top 10. I rarely talk about other companies, but Final Fantasy VII is an exception. I didn't own a PlayStation growing up, so I was never introduced to many of Sony's games like Crash Bandicoot or Final Fantasy. I played most of their games later on once I had grown up a bit, and man, when I first played Final Fantasy VII, I fell in love. It's probably clear by now, but I am a massive fan of RPGs, and this along with Xenoblade are the main reasons I got into them. Having a story and characters you can actually give a shit about is something I will always take over fast-paced action. Cloud is one of my favorite protagonists ever, and you should have seen my reaction when he was revealed for Smash 4. It went a little bit something like this. And I'm not going to spoil the big thing that happens near the end. Everyone who's played the game knows exactly what I'm talking about, but that might have been one of the few times I almost cried at a video game. And now that the game is going to be on the Nintendo Switch eShop, everyone who has never played it needs to try it out. Or just buy a PS4 and get the remake next year, which I'm probably gonna do. So why not join me and waste $300 on a console for one game? I have said many times before that my second favorite video game series of all time is Pokemon, yet my favorite game in the whole series isn't even a mainline game. The Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games are all exceptional. Mostly all exceptional, but my favorite is Explorers of Time or Darkness or Sky. It really doesn't matter which because they're basically all the same game. This is one of the few Pokemon games with characters you actually grow to care for, and it's pretty obvious that that's something that I just adore. Normally you just have some douchey rival whose ass you want to kick or some pushover rival who no one gives a shit about in the main games. But here you have a partner who travels with you throughout the entire game and becomes your best friend. You do literally everything together, and there's just a moment at the end, again just like Final Fantasy, where I actually did cry because it's just one of the saddest things I have ever experienced. The entire game has just so much personality with the characters that still just stand out to this day. And the music, oh my god, I just love every last piece of music in this game, especially the final boss theme and the theme that made me cry. The story has so many twists and turns and takes you through highs and lows that you'd never expect. And the levels are so well designed with an amazing hub world too. Plus, the games have just so much to do outside of the main story with quests that you can do to help others out and just gives you hours upon hours of entertainment. I don't know if another Mystery Dungeon game will ever top this one because this was damn near perfect. Now, I have hated on this next franchise a lot over the past few years and has made people a little bit upset with me, but earlier this year we did get a new game in the series, so I decided to give it a shot. And I am proud to admit that I was completely wrong, and I take back any slander that I ever said upon these games. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but at number 4, we have Fire Emblem Three Houses. If you have been paying any attention to this video, then you know exactly why I love this game. This game is basically all building relationships with other characters with a great story to back it all up. Honestly, this game is just a dating simulator with swords, but maybe that's why I love it so much. It's been a long time since I played a game and just couldn't stop. I got this game around launch and did my first playthrough with the Black Eagles and was instantly hooked. I immediately played through the other two houses and Black Eagles again to see all the different paths, and it was all so much fun. Getting to be a teacher in an academy for knights is so awesome, and every student is so quirky and fun to talk to. except Lawrence, cause f him. But whenever I talk about a game with great stories and characters, this will forever be the game that I point to from now on. And I know there are some Fire Emblem purists who think this game isn't a good Fire Emblem game for having too much focus on relationships and having a casual mode, but I still don't care and I love it. If you're like me and have never played a Fire Emblem game before, pick this game up because it changed my opinion on the entire series. And make sure to pick Black Eagles. As much as I love Claude and his dumbass, I will always be Team Edelgard. I still honestly can't believe how much I love this game, and the only reason I'm not putting it higher is because the game is still so new and I want to make sure that I still feel the same way once the new game hype dies down a bit. But this game could easily be in my top 3 or maybe even top 2. It is now time to talk about the greatest collectathon to ever exist. At number 3, we have none other than Banjo Kazooie. This is the absolute best game released on the Nintendo 64 and was by far the game that I played the most growing up, besides Pokemon. I've made an entire video on this game and why I think it's amazing, so I'm going to keep this brief and you can go watch that video if you want to see my full review. The game controls like a dream, even on a shitty 3-dicked controller like the N64. The levels are all incredibly well designed with fun challenges and secrets to uncover. The hub world is so interactive and blends perfectly into the theme of each level, and the music is just so goddamn good! Gruntilda is such a fun enemy to face and fuck bottles. This game is just the pinnacle of all 3D adventure collectathons and is way better than any of those Mario collectathons to ever exist. And now that they're in Smash, I have hope for the true Banjo 3E to come out so I can forget this ever existed. Guess what? At number 2 we have another RPG. Who would have ever guessed that? But this is the last one on the list and is the greatest GameCube game of all time. At number 2 we have none other than Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. I shouldn't need to explain why this is so high on my list, but I guess I will. This game has Flavio. What else does it need? This game has the best story of any Mario game, and it's not even close. The X-Nauts and Grotus are a way more compelling villain than Bowser could ever dream to be, with a goal that extends way past just kidnapping Peach. Bowser is relegated to basically a comic relief character and honestly might be my favorite character in the whole game, which is saying a lot considering how lackluster and stupid I usually think he is. The chapters all feel distinctly different with new challenges and areas to explore that make you feel like you're really traversing this grand world. I mean, come on. A WWE wrestling arena floating in the sky where you need to become champion for just the 3rd chapter of the whole game? I don't know how the f they came up with that idea, but I love them for it. Even Rogueport, as much of a rundown shithole that it is, has so much charm and is my favorite hub of any Paper Mario game. And what really makes this game stand out are the characters and just the writing. Every partner is so unique and adds something that we've never seen before. We have 2 depressed dudes who yearn for adventure, a baby Yoshi who just wants to beat everyone up, and 4 non-human women who want to f Mario. God, this game is weird. But this game is incredible, and I am definitely a part of the hashtag Remaster 1000 Year Door Club. That is something that the world needs before we all die of climate change, so get on it, Nintendo. If you have been on my channel for longer than like 30 seconds, you know exactly what the number 1 game on my list is gonna be. The game that I would absolutely cry if we got a remaster of, and I know this is gonna be controversial, but the greatest Zelda game of all time. My favorite video game of all time is none other than The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. Where do I even begin? There has never, and I mean never, been a game before nor since that has had me so entranced and drawn into the story, characters, and just everything more than Skyward Sword. The only game in recent years that's gotten close is actually Three Houses, but even then it wasn't at the level of Skyward Sword. This game is literally the beginning of the Zelda timeline and shows how the curse that left Link, Zelda, and Ganon in eternal battle over the Triforce was created, which just holy f***, that's awesome. Skyloft is one of the coolest starting areas in any Zelda game and is obviously way more unique than any other game by a mile. I don't think after playing Ocarina of Time you would think, I really hope they make a Zelda game that takes place in the sky. That wouldn't make any sense, yet they still did it and it worked perfectly. People love to hate on the sky by saying it's too barren, which I just couldn't disagree with more. There are so many little quests and chests to find that anybody who says it's barren probably never got past Faron Woods. And if you're going to consider the sky barren, then I guess the Great Sea and Hyrule Field are barren since there's barely anything to do there either. And going down to the surface, the Faron Woods, Eldin Volcano, and Lanayru Desert are also vastly different and give a nice variety to the game. And now I'm just waiting for the people to comment, how could there be variety? You just go to the same 3 places like 50 times. And yes, you are technically correct, but that's just such a simplistic way to look at it. Every time you visit one of these regions, it is completely different than the last. The experience is never the same, and you get to ride a boat across the Sand Sea. Be grateful for this masterpiece. I could go on and on about this game, and I will defend it to death, but that would make this video go on just a bit too long. All you need to know is this game is an absolute masterpiece and doesn't deserve all the hate it gets. And if we ever get a remake on the Switch, just know I will be first in line to buy it. So there you have it, those are my top 10 favorite games of all time. I know my taste is a bit centralized on RPGs and Zelda, but hey, at least you can't call me a Nintendo apologist anymore because I had a PlayStation game in my top 10. But anyways, I just want to thank all of you for helping me create content on this channel for 10 years now. That is almost half of my entire life, and I wouldn't change any of it for the world. I know there was like a 3-year gap in the middle of those 10 years, but we don't need to talk about that. Hopefully we can just make it another 10 years, and then maybe I can make a top 10 least favorite games of all time. There are a lot of games that I hate, so that would be a lot of fun to make, but we all know what would be number 1 on that list. F*** you, Sticker Star.